Like,
Hello, it is still morning here in the UK, and I'm delighted to have back Champak Chauhan, CV Chauhan, who writes crime novels set in the Leicester area. And where there was one topic we didn't touch on last time that we're very keen to share is how you got published. What was your path to publishing?
yeah, good morning, Morgan. Lovely to be with you again. Yeah, I thought it was really important to convey the message to all your participants that it's important not to give up. And my example, along with many other authors, is a good one in terms of not giving up, I thought. Because going back to my first book, The Dance of Death, I said it took me about 4 years to write in the evenings in different hotel rooms in different parts of the UK while I was working.
Mm,
But at least I was freelancing at that point. So I decided when I was working, when I wasn't in education.
mm,
But by and large, I still obviously had to earn money. So I was working the evenings and at weekends and on
mm,
and off. It took me about 4 years.
sure.
And by the time I'd written the book, and I knew it was long, it was about 120,000 words.
Okay.
And most
Which may
public,
may scare off some
yeah,
publishers,
I know, and
because
most,
that costs a lot of money
yeah,
to print
I know. Yeah,
120,000
I
pages.
know.
Yeah.
And I knew it was long, but
Mm,
because the guidelines was for a debut author, it was anything between 70 to 90,000
mm,
words. That's what
mm,
publishers were looking for.
yeah,
And I knew that, and I'd rather have too many words which can be pruned back
sure.
than too few. And I kept reading what I'd done, and I thought, I'm too intimately involved with this because I created it.
Mm,
So I decided to pay an independent freelance editor who'd been recommended to me.
mhm,
So I contacted her. Another author friend of mine recommended me to her. She lives in London.
mhm,
Um, and I said, look, I've got this book. Can you please look at it and give me your opinion about how it reads, whether it needs any structural changes, and so on,
mhm,
all the whole editorial gambit.
sure.
And although it cost me a lot of money, I mean, I thought it was worth investing
Sure.
in this process.
Yeah.
So I sent my draft off, and about 3 weeks later, I got about 6 or 7 pages of feedback, along with track changes
Mhm,
throughout the whole document. Incredibly thorough process.
mm,
And I looked at all of that, and I found her comments incredibly helpful because this was somebody I didn't know who was a professional editor, and she was
mm,
telling me of all the things I should be careful about in the art and craft of writing.
sure.
So as I had a discussion with her, I either online or on the telephone about what she was suggesting and so on. So
Mm,
I made all the changes I felt I ought to make. And the book had been pruned back by her to, I think it was about 96,000 words at that
okay.
point. So she'd removed
That's
uh,
good going.
yeah, about 24,000 words,
Wow.
which I was happy about. I could
Yeah,
see where she was coming from.
sure.
And then the mistake many first-time authors make, which is the trap I fell into as well,
Mm,
is you describe things too much. You don't leave enough to the imagination of the reader.
yeah.
Things
Yeah.
like that.
I think the thing I find when I'm going through a book is that you'll be shown something, and then just in case the reader didn't get it, they're then told it
Yes.
exactly the same thing in a different way, obviously, exactly the same thing. So that's pretty much the chopping I do.
Yeah. And so anyway, I sent this revised version back to the editor, and then she had another look at it and suggested a few more changes, and so on. All in all, it took about three occasions where she worked on it with me, and
Yeah.
we felt we'd finally got it honed down to to a state where I could approach agents with it, and it was about 88,000 words. I forget the exact figure now, so
Mm.
we were getting there,
All right. Yep.
and I was happy with the finished product. Every comma, every dot, every I had been crossed, so
Mm.
it was as good as it was going to get, and I
Sure.
invested a lot of money in it, not just time, but time, effort, money,
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
so she was excellent, Now, as we all do, I've got the Writers and Artists Yearbook,
Mhm.
started going through the list of agents, I thought,
Yeah.
oh, because I was extending the genre, I was writing something people were writing about, or indeed could write, because of my
Mhm.
experience and background and so
Sure.
on,
Yeah.
and setting in Leicester. I thought an agent would pick me up fairly quickly,
Mm.
I knew I'd get a few rejections, but I thought there bound to be a few rejections, but I thought in the end I'll hit an agent who will be really interested in what I've done.
Mm.
So normally, as you know, they ask for the first 10,000 words and a synopsis and a brief biography.
Mhm.
So I did all of that, went
Mm.
onto their websites and did the submission along the guidelines
Mm.
um, that they request. And it's really obviously important to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so the first 5 applications went off and I waited, and 5 rejections came back.
Mm.
Another 5, another 5 rejections, another 5, another 5 rejections.
Mm.
This carried on for several months, and in the end, I got 45 rejections, and only 2 agents asked to read the whole book.
Mhm.
One read it, well, one asked for it, and
Yeah.
within 48 hours sent me a rejection over the weekend,
Oh.
saying that this is not for us, the typical kind of
Mm.
response. And the other agent didn't even respond despite
No.
repeated requests on my part to
No.
at least let me know whether they were interested or not.
Yeah.
And I
But.
was getting a bit despondent at that stage, so I thought I'm going to self-publish this, because
Mhm.
this is a mug's game.
Right.
Because I knew I'd done something different, something unusual, and there was definitely a market for my work out there.
Sure.
And as I was, so I kind of paid for a designer, cover designer myself, and
Mhm.
she'd done the design. And I thought the editor and I had worked on the book, and it was in terms of spelling, grammar, punctuation, structure, pace, tension, climax, all of that. I thought, well,
Yeah.
this reads fine to me. So I was about to self-publish, and I was literally days away from that when I saw an advert from 3 digital publishers in one of the magazines. I think it may have been Writing or
Mhm.
the
Writers Forum or something. Yeah.
yeah, something I
Mhm.
can't remember which one it was,
Yeah.
but all 3 were advertising at around about the same time. And I thought, oh, well, and well, one was the digital imprint of one of the big 5, So I thought,
Okay.
oh, okay, again, it was the 10,000 words and the
Sure.
other kind of submission
Mm.
details that they wanted. I sent that off. I mean, expecting 3 more rejections. Having had about 45, I thought probably get 3 more.
Mm.
But I didn't. I mean, the digital imprint of the big publishing house came back to
Mm.
me fairly quickly and said, "We really like your work. Can you please send us the whole book?" So
Brilliant.
yeah, so I sent it off, and the other 2 did as well. They wanted to read the whole book
Mhm.
literally within um, a week or 2 weeks of me submitting the 10,000 words.
Yeah.
And all 3 were interested in publishing my work. The first one, the big publishing house, digital imprint, they wanted me to make fairly major changes to the text, and
Mm.
I thought long and hard about that. But while I was thinking about that, my current publisher came back to me saying, "Look, we really love your stuff.
Mhm.
we will give you a 3-book deal straight away, you know.
Mm.
But and then I was really happy, you know, because I knew I'd have a professional editor with an emerging online publisher.
Mhm.
They were just 2 or 3 years old at that stage,
Mm.
as a company, and they had about 40, 50 authors on their books, you know,
Mm.
and they've expanded quite dramatically over the last 5, 6 years since
Mm.
I've been with them.
Mm.
Uh, and they've got about 100 authors on their books from all over the world. And I'm really pleased with them. But what they said to me, and this is what I think is important for other people to realize, is most publishers, as far as I'm aware, will say, yeah, we'll publish your book, but we won't do it till the second book, if it's a series,
Right.
is ready in draft form.
Sure.
Yeah, so the Dancer Dead was ready, but it would take me another 7, 8 months to write the second
Mm.
book.
Right.
They held on to the first one. So when
Yeah.
it was ready in draft form, I submitted it to my publishers, and they said, "Great." You know, my editor came back to me quite quickly and said, "Great." You know, and
Mhm.
and then she started editing the first book, The Dancer Death, and then
Mm.
that was published in March 2022,
Mm.
so just over 2 years ago.
Yeah. And
And
had it changed much? Did,
yes, it did. Yeah, but
okay.
I was happy with that.
Because that's the thing. If once you even if you hire a professional editor to edit it, if you send it to an agent or a publisher, they'll want their own changes.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And I was quite
Yeah.
happy with it, you know,
Yeah.
because the changes were negotiated with me, you know. I
Mm.
was asked my opinion.
Yeah.
Was I happy with what had happened? And then
Mm.
some of the changes I made myself based on what my editor was saying to me. So that
Sure.
was fine as a process. So it was published in March of 2022, and then the second one was published in no, beg your pardon. It was published in August 2022, and the second one was published in March 2023, so last
Okay.
year.
Mhm.
So that's not that great a length of time between the two
No,
books.
that's pretty good. Pretty
It
good
was
going,
already
actually.
ready, you
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
in draft form,
Yeah.
and then the third one was
Yeah.
published this year. Although my publishers had it in their in tray or on their hard drive for several months, but
Mm.
that's
Mm.
how it is, you know.
Because the trouble with a writer is that on average a writer or a book goes from inception to, if you're lucky, publication in a year,
Yeah.
and then readers will read it over a weekend or in a day, and then go, okay, what have you got next?
Yeah. No,
And
yeah,
Tim, my other half, my husband, um, he gets notified he's got sort of key authors. He's a sci-fi reader.
yeah,
He has key authors that he loves reading, and as soon as he gets notified that their new book is out, he'll download it, and then he'll literally just a few evenings over a week, and that will be that read,
yeah,
and he
yeah.
knows he's got months before the next one.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's funny you should say that because just yesterday, I got a friend request on Facebook from a reader in Leicestershire.
Mm.
It didn't mean anything to me, the name or anything,
Right.
obviously, just an anonymous individual. And
Mm.
I I accepted the request, you know, and then she sent me a message through Messenger
Mm.
say how much she'd enjoyed reading my books one and two.
Wow.
And because she's a Leicestershire person, she could
Mm. Did
identify,
relate to it, yeah.
yeah, with the
Yeah.
locations and everything else. And she said
Mm.
she really enjoyed book three, you
Oh.
know, one which had just been published, and she wanted to
Mhm.
know when book four was
Okay.
out, whether when
Right.
when
When you've thought about it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Plus a
kernels
year.
idea, yeah,
Mm.
are already there, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm in discussion with my publisher as well
Mm.
on
It was for
provision.
two more books, wasn't it?
Yeah,
They want you to do
provisional.
two more books.
Do two more, but
Yeah.
but that's my choice. They wanted me to carry on, and
Mm.
but I said, Look, let's review the situation after two more. That would make it
Mm.
five, and
Mhm.
then maybe carry on. You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's fine. You know,
Yeah. I'm not
um,
sure if I asked you this last time, whether you age your main characters.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so
Um,
that gives you a finite length, really, unless
Absolutely.
they carry on as a consultant like Rebus. They
Yeah,
carry
yeah,
on as a consultant after.
yeah.
But your chap's in his 30s, isn't it? He's good.
His mid-30s, yeah. And
Yes.
the,
Yeah,
the
he's
way I
brilliant.
show his aging process is through his children. Because he's
Okay.
got two children, boy and a girl, and they're growing up.
Mm,
And he's not quite keeping tabs because they live with their mother,
mm,
at the speed with which they're growing up and so on. And
right.
yeah,
Probably
yeah.
the language as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but it's definitely aging. I didn't want to end up in a world, like as you say, well, Reacher, for instance, Jack Reacher, the
Mm,
lead child. I mean, if you look at the early books, there's a CV of him on the first page, inside page, and he was born in
yeah.
October 1960. It said.
Okay.
So that makes him
Yeah,
what's
so I'm 60 something now.
64 now.
64, yeah.
Yeah. Yet he obviously isn't, and there are
Mm,
references to him aging in the later book,
mm,
but he still behaves.
well,
Is in his mid-30s or 40s.
yeah. Yeah. Do you like the TV? If you read the books, do you like? Because
Yes,
obviously there was controversy when Tom Cruise was cast, and I think he did a brilliant job in the films. But
yeah,
I do like I can't remember Alan something. I can't remember his name. The TV series. I think he's perfect.
I do like the TV series.
Mm,
I've forgotten the actor's name, but that's
yeah,
everybody's idea of Reacher.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Because he's got a vulnerability. You
yeah,
know what he's capable of,
yeah,
but then he's got his quirks. He. I think in one of the episodes he had to leave behind his toothbrush, and so he had to go and buy another one. And
yeah,
I
yeah,
think he even borrowed the money
yeah,
or
yeah,
something
yeah.
for to go get another toothbrush, and that was his baggage.
But I haven't read every Reacher book. There's 22 or three or four, something
No,
in that region.
no,
I've read a fair few. I do
mm,
like them a lot.
mm,
But yeah, it depends how the series goes, because some series. Oh, I was talking about James Lee Burke the
mm,
last time. I mean, I hadn't read anything by him till I saw him being interviewed on Zoom at Crime Fest in Bristol.
mm,
And he's written a series about a character called Dave Robichaud, set in Louisiana,
right,
which is where he lives,
right,
detective. And I thought, I must read that. So, but there are 26 books, I think.
wow,
Yeah, I know, and the guy's 87 and still writing.
mm,
And I bought the first one. Well, I bought the first two. Read the first one. I thought this is
mm,
brilliant.
mm,
I'm looking forward to reading the second one, which is on
mm.
one of my shelves in the room next
Are
door.
you a paperback reader or a Kindle
Yeah,
reader
no,
or a
I'm
bit of
always,
both?
yeah, a bit of both. Certainly when I'm on holiday, it's always Kindle,
Yeah,
but I always still take three or four paperbacks with me.
right.
Yeah, I'm old school. I love the touch and the feel of something in my hand, paper that,
Mm,
you know,
mm,
uh, I just love books,
mm,
as a physical entity. I
yeah,
like covers. I like. The other thing, again, this is probably just me. When I have a paperback or a hardback, I've got many hardbacks, but obviously I don't
mm,
carry them on holiday.
mm,
Um, when you have something in front of you that's physically tangible, I
mm,
look at it, the few pages, and try and work out how the author is structured a particular chapter,
mm,
what kind of message he or she is trying to get through in terms of the
mm,
story, which you can't readily do on a Kindle,
yeah,
but you can with a hard copy
yeah.
of it.
Plus, it's easier. You can add notes and highlights on a Kindle, but I think it's easier then to
Yeah,
jot a note down and pop it in the page. Do you print off your own writing and
yeah,
read it on paper? You do.
yeah, I do.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
some publishers will send the sort of a proof copy as a paper. I've seen them actually spiral bound. On one of the occasions I went to Harrogate, and they had it was a version of Noir at the Bar the night before,
yeah.
and one of the authors, his book wasn't quite out yet, and she'd got a proof copy spiral bound, which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, no, it is.
Brilliant
I
idea.
mean, yeah, with my books, I print them myself and work
Mm,
on hard copies as I'm
mm,
editing them. Yeah.
mm.
I mean,
Do you use a red pen?
I'm just trying to think. No, no, blue probably.
Oh, do you? Well, when I was teaching for Northamptonshire Council, I wasn't allowed to use it. Well, I was discouraged. They didn't really not allow me to do anything as long as the learners learned. They don't study, they learn, so they're learners rather than students. So I was given a supply of green pens because it was less harsh than a red pen.
Maybe. I mean, you
Right.
have to look at the impact of that on the child, don't you?
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
I'm editing my own work, or it's by and large black or blue, you know. I mean,
Right.
blue
Yeah.
stamp on
Yeah.
white
Well,
paper.
I was doing adult learning, which is 19 upwards, age 19 upwards.
Yeah.
So I kind of think if you can't handle a red pen at
Oh, no,
19,
yeah, no,
then you're not prepared for life,
no, no,
really.
yeah, no,
That's
no,
not harsh.
yeah. But in terms of editing, I'm quite ruthless at what I cut out of my own
Mm,
work. I really am.
mm,
If something, a whole paragraph or even a page doesn't make sense, I mean,
mm,
it's not often that a page doesn't make sense
yeah,
because I do plan.
yeah,
But I'm quite ruthless about cutting out
right.
my own work, and that's because of my training in the civil service and so
Mm.
on.
So do you highlight it and press delete, or do you move it somewhere else?
No, this is
It
on
could be used somewhere else
my, oh
if
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
chunk
Oh yeah, yeah. What I do, I always save everything. So each version of my book, I save my book as I'm going along, you know. So
as a new version.
yeah, as a new
Yeah,
version, and
that's a good idea.
each version of my book, the latest one, for instance, The Right Time to Die, before I submitted it to my publisher, was on version 22. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So from where it started to where it ended up, and
Mm,
the last three or four versions were the whole book, maybe four or
right.
five, you know,
Yeah.
where I've been through it over and over and over
Yeah.
again, you know,
Yeah.
to get rid of excess
Yeah.
kind of
So
words.
you're a kind author. Because well, I must admit, when I work for publishers, they do tend to be pretty good manuscripts because they don't accept them if it needs. I guess if they've got two authors they really like and they've only got space for one, then they'll take the one that's easier to work with. But I have working for authors directly. I have literally received one was by agreement because she was on a deadline. He or she, I think it was a she, was on a deadline and had I think put up a pre-order and then realised that it needed more work doing to it, and so I got it as a first draft. But she'd written several books before that, so that was absolutely fine. But I have had some in the past where I've gone through them and thought you haven't actually even read this once
Yeah.
because there were bits missing
No,
and
that's
so I've you get easy books and I just charge a flat rate per 1,000 words, so it compensates getting an easy book to one that needs a lot more work.
yeah, no, no. I mean,
So you're a nice author to work with.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's professional pride, but thank you for saying that. It's professional pride as well, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I like to make sure that everything is in place before
Mm,
somebody else sees it,
mm,
you know.
yeah. Plus,
So
you have an educational background,
yeah, yeah,
so that's part of your not upbringing, but
yeah, well,
your
yeah,
history so far.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh, but the most important part, apart from having created the book, is the actual editing that the author does, I think.
Mm, mm,
Um, I think it was Hemingway who said there are no great writers, only great editors.
right.
You know,
Yeah. And I
uh,
think it's Dashiell Hammett who's quoted as saying, "Easy reading is damn hard writing."
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And that brings me to my next point because
Mm,
one of my favorite authors is Elmore Leonard, the
right.
great American crime writer who
Mhm,
sadly died about
mm,
10, 12 years ago, something like that.
mm,
And many of his books have been made into films, and he's known as the Dickens of Detroit. Some of his characters in
right.
Detroit and Miami, and so absolutely wonderful characters, you know.
Mm,
And he had a pitch for dialogue, you know, which not many people do.
mm,
George Higgins was somebody who did, and Elmore
okay.
Leonard was another one. And the
Yeah.
authentic dialogue spoken by kind of people living in Miami or Chicago. Brilliant, you know, it's set in Black communities, Latino communities, and that kind of
Mm.
thing. And he once said that if an author uses a word which the reader doesn't understand, and the reader has to put the book away and pick up a dictionary, the
Right.
author has lost that reader.
Yeah.
In all my books, I never knowingly use any words or phrases that is
Mm.
going to lose the reader.
Right.
You've got to
I-
engage the reader at all
yeah.
times.
But equally, we were talking about the three E's the other day, and I
Yeah,
can't remember the fourth one. We added a fourth one, and I think you part of, because you said you like to learn things from books,
yeah, I
and I
do.
think part of it, my job as an editor, is to, even though it's a word I have to look up, if the context is there, it's like and I'm sure you use unusual names that say readers from other countries wouldn't know, for products or places, or,
Yeah, no,
and it's the context. As
yeah.
long as you both agree, the author and the editor agree, that the context is there, then
No,
they're
yeah,
learning
I agree.
something.
And then because I write crime fiction, there's a
Mm.
lot of detail about, say, forensics or geology we were talking
Yeah,
about the
yeah.
other day.
Mm.
Technical terms.
Mm.
If I have to use them, I will, but there's
Mm.
always some sort of explanation of what they mean
Mm.
within the text, you know, either
Mm.
dialogue or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
So the reader doesn't have to kind of go to a dictionary or a thesaurus or look it up on
Mm.
their mobile phone
Yeah,
or whatever, you
yeah,
know, about
yeah.
what the word
Because
means.
as we were saying, there'll be some readers who like just a gentle, easy read with nothing too complicated,
Yeah, yeah.
and then there'll be the others who love all the technical side of it, especially crime novels, because they can get quite techy.
Yeah, and
Um,
I mean, having said what I've said, I mean, I love Jeffrey Deaver's work because
mm,
he researches so much and there's so much
mm,
information
mm,
about forensics, for instance, in his Lincoln Rhyme books, you know,
mm,
which even I didn't know about, even though I've read so many books on forensic
mm,
investigation, you
mm.
know. So I mean, his books can be, not all of them, but they can be quite technical. And
Right.
I learned so much about forensic investigation through reading his Lincoln Rhyme books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
So
have a favorite, or all these read? Is it like saying who's your favorite character? Do you have a favorite author? This one. Are there ones that you follow on Amazon to the point of you go and buy their book when you get an email that says they have a new book out?
oh yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
there lots of those?
Diva child. I was, but I mean, my sadly, most of my favorite authors are dead. You know, but
Oh.
yeah, I mean, Raymond Chandler, I love. You know, I mean,
Mm,
even though the Philip Marlowe books, there's only a handful of them. I mean,
mm,
they're the classics in English
mm,
literature. Never mind that they're crime books. I mean, they're just.
yeah.
I said this the other day. Yeah.
So
Uh,
what do you think of authors who sort of keep going, in respect of, say, Felix Francis has taken over from Dick Francis, and I think, and is it Andrew? No, there's Lee's son, I think, is collaborating
yeah,
with him, and there, so there are some authors, Sophie Hannah's one of them, who have written Agatha Christie's,
yeah, yeah,
sort of kept that going. But
yeah,
they must read literally everything
yeah,
that's ever
yeah,
been published, and
yeah, yeah.
biographies and so on, to know what they're doing.
Yeah, I remember Lee Child being interviewed once, and I've met him a few times at Bristol at Crime Fest and at
Mm,
book signings before
mm,
I decided, you know, that I was going to sit down and write myself. And I remember him saying somewhere that he was only ever going to write 20 books, you know, because his 20 Reacher books, because
mm.
his main inspiration was John MacDonald, who wrote the Travis McGee books.
Right.
I don't know whether it means anything, but they're well
Not to
worth
me.
reading. Travis McGee, who lives
Okay.
in Florida. And
Mm.
what Lee Child used to do, because he was commuting backwards and forwards to America quite a lot, his wife's an American, and he
Mm.
was reading these books on the plane because he picked one up at the airport. And then he
Oh.
decided, that he would look at how they'd been structured. He'd look at dialogue and pace and everything that we
Mm.
look at. So 20 of these books, and he said, like John MacDonald, there were only ever going to be 20 Reacher books. That was his plan originally.
Mm.
But at that point, I mean, obviously nobody knew how successful they were going to be. I mean, you're jumping over a cliff, aren't you? I mean,
Mm.
you might have written three, and that would have been the end of it, But
Mm.
I mean, thankfully they're successful. And before you know it, I mean, the Reacher franchise, as he put it, you're referring to the Tom Cruise films, which I haven't seen,
Mm.
but I'm aware.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
aware.
I would suspend your belief
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
you
no,
know, he's not
I mean,
a 6 foot Hulk, but 6 foot something Hulk. But
no, I mean,
no, he does it really well. But I like Tom Cruise anyway, so
yeah,
he had me at Top Gun.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I like watching his films,
Mm.
especially the Mission Impossible ones. But
Yeah.
anyway, the Reacher franchise is worth $3 billion.
Yeah, not surprised.
Yeah, it's 3 billion, not
Mm.
million,
Yeah.
$1 billion,
Mm.
TV series, the spin-off products like mugs and t-shirts and everything
Mm.
else, the book,
Mm.
obviously, and so on. So I think there was commercial pressure not to give up on the franchise because
Right.
there was so much money being made.
Mm.
And that's why Andrew Child was Lee Child's younger brother.
Oh, okay. I knew
Yeah,
it was a relative of
yeah,
some
yeah. Yeah,
kind. Yeah.
his name's Andrew Grant.
Right.
The Grant is Charles' kind of surname.
His surname.
And
Yeah.
Andrew was writing under his own name. He was writing thrillers. I think he'd
Okay.
several.
Mm.
And it seemed a natural progression that Lee Child, once he decided he was going to give up, they were collaborated
Mm.
the last three books, I think it is.
Okay.
And now for whatever comes next, I think Andrew Child is going to write them by
Take
him.
it over.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a commercial decision to keep the franchise going.
Mm.
That's just my view. I could be completely,
Yeah.
you know. But interestingly enough, Lee Child is publishing a book of short stories, which will be out this
Is
month.
he?
Yeah, yeah,
I've got some of his. There are 3 or 4. I can't remember what they're called. There are 3 or 4 collections that he's put together. But I think he's got a short story in there and other people.
yeah,
But yeah, no, that's my favourite format.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
I'd buy that when it comes
he's
out.
edited a number of
Mm.
books with contributions from everybody else. But this is just
Mm.
by him, short story.
Okay. Well, I shall
But this
look out for that.
I give him a plug.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he needs it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, next time you see him, say, "Well, I gave you a plug
Yeah,
on a video webinar, so please do the same with me next time
I know, I know.
you you chat."
But
Have you ever given any of your books to anybody famous?
um, not yet,
No,
not
because
yet.
I think it's a bit frowned upon because if you're at literary festivals, fair enough. If somebody asks you, then that's fair enough. But yes, I read a post a little while ago on Facebook of someone who'd given their book and hadn't heard anything. Expected the author to read it and hadn't was a bit disappointed that they hadn't got back in touch a month later to say that they'd read it and really enjoyed it. And unfortunately, most of the people, they were very sweet about it, but most of the people said, well, that's not really the done thing because if they want a copy, if you talk about it and they show interest, then and you offer and they say yes, then fair enough. But yes,
Yeah,
tricky,
I mean,
tricky.
I'm not aware of the etiquette of these things,
Mm.
But whenever I'm at a festival, I always buy any book I want,
Yeah.
even though the
Mm.
author's there. I'd never go up to anybody and say, "Oh, can I have a copy of your book?" or whatever.
No, no. But
Uh,
they're wonderful networking events, aren't
yeah,
they?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think
Well,
I've done Harrogate about 6 times. Now
I,
I'm further south. I'm going to do Crime Fest, hopefully next year,
yeah, yeah, I'll be there. I've already
Bristol.
booked my.
Will you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I,
I
I go
shall.
there every year, and I've been
Okay.
doing that for about 10, 12 years, you know,
Have you?
a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Less so Harrogate, but I was in Harrogate this year.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, it
so
wasn't so far when I was in, well, I mean, you're Northampton now, so it wasn't so far. It was a 3 hour. I did it in one day. I did a round trip one day. I was
that,
going to stay. I
uh,
booked a hotel and decided in the end to come back and
it is
have
a
my
long
dog.
trip because I got stuck in traffic. It took me about 4 hours to get there, but I was
Mm,
staying up there, so it
yeah. Yeah. No, it's a lovely place. And
yeah,
I like the fact it's all in one venue,
yeah, yeah.
which is great.
As it's Crime Fest in
Mm,
Bristol, you know,
mm,
it's a different experience, the two of them.
mm.
Yeah, no, it'd be good to catch up at Crime Fest in
Yeah,
May
I plan to.
of next year. Yeah.
Plan to do that.
And so,
Anything else you'd like to say before we head off?
no, at this stage, I think that'll do. I'm
Okay.
sure you've heard too much from.
Yes, we'll that's okay. That's all right. Yes, so next time I see you, we'll be chatting about your first book,
Yeah,
and then we'll work our way through. We may have to space them out if we're going to get to a fourth book,
yeah,
but
but at least three are out there, you know. So,
exactly,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. Well, that's October, November, December, so we'll
Yeah.
have chatted about them by Christmas,
Okay,
so
great. Yeah.
people
And-
can
oh,
buy them for their friends for Christmas.
yeah,
Friends
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
family for Christmas. Okay. Well,
Well,
lovely chatting to you again.
yeah,
Thank you
same
so
here.
much.
Not at
And
all.
and we'll chat again about your first book.
Yeah, yeah. Look
All
forward
right.
to it. Yeah.
Okay.
Look
Me
after
too.
yourself. Okay.
All
Yes.
right. Thank you.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.